Hello there, everyone. Hola, and welcome to the Spanish GCSE and iGCSE video tutorial. In this video tutorial, we are looking at a commonly difficult area of Spanish grammar and very useful for all GCSE and iGCSE students as well, which is ser and estar. So these two verbs, both translating as to be in English, can often be confused. And we're going to go through the differences between them, how to use each of them, and more. So it should be very useful. My name, firstly, though, is Dhananjay Talwar, and I did French and Italian for my MA at the University of Cambridge, graduating way back now in 2015. And I've been in the field of education since that time. I have learnt more than 20 languages to different levels, and that includes at least 9 to fluency, of which Spanish is naturally one. Yeah, it's a real hobby of mine, something that I'm very passionate about and probably always will be. And I likewise really enjoy motivating my students, helping them to learn languages, making sure they have the tools required to do so while having a lot of fun at the same time. So it's been a very rewarding journey as a tutor so far. And I've very much enjoyed helping over 500 students so far to achieve or even surpass their target grade for GCSE or iGCSE exams in different languages as a full-time tutor. I have been a full-time tutor for some 6 years now, and during that time, I've taught 8 languages for GCSE or iGCSE, and several of those at high levels as well. So these are the Spanish GCSE and iGCSE exam boards as of August 2025. 4 of them for GCSE Spanish and 2 for iGCSE Spanish. So as a student, you should be doing one of these exam boards. And yeah, it's good to be aware of which exam board you're taking because there can be differences, certainly from exam board to exam board, in terms of the format of the papers and the syllabus to some extent as well. Okay, in this particular video, though, we are looking at a very commonly confused element of Spanish grammar. And because this video is on Spanish grammar, it is, of course, suitable and useful for all students, regardless of which exact exam board they are studying. So the two verbs we're looking at here are ser and estar. So ser and estar are two different verbs that both have the same translation in English. So both of these would translate as to be in English. So that is obviously a clear difference between English and Spanish. English has one verb meaning to be, whereas Spanish has two, both ser and estar. And of course, these two Spanish verbs are used differently. They're used in different instances. They would both generally translate as to be in English, but each of them has different uses. It is important, of course, to know the conjugations for these two very common verbs as well. Although in this particular video, we are going to go through the uses above all, rather than the conjugations. But do check through, particularly if you're unsure, the conjugations of these verbs in different tenses. The most common verbs in a language tend to be the most irregular. That's certainly the case in Spanish. And both of these verbs can be irregular in other tenses. So make sure to revise those conjugations carefully too. The main thing that people struggle with, though, is knowing when to use which one. So when you use ser and when you use estar. And I'm going to show you ways to remember this, very shortly. That is a tricky part of Spanish grammar, but still very important because at GCSE and iGCSE level, you will definitely see both of these verbs come up quite often. Okay, so we're going to kick off by looking at the verb estar first, before moving on to ser. So we're going to look at when you'd use the verb estar. Remember, of course, estar as well as ser translates as to be in English. Estar has a number of quite specific uses. And the way I still remember it is I would essentially memorize the uses of the verb estar, they're somewhat more limited in nature. There's perhaps 3 or 4 main uses of the verb estar. And I would simply remember that ser is used whenever estar is not. So whenever the criteria for using estar is not met, I would use ser instead. And that works really well for me. It's also considerably easier to remember because ser can be used in many different instances, many different occasions and scenarios. And instead of remembering all of them, I would just remember that you use ser when you wouldn't use estar, essentially. So when any of the criteria for using estar are not met, you'd use ser instead. And that has been, for me, a lot easier to remember and to memorize. But this is likely to take practice to know when to use which of these verbs as well. I should also mention that many students are taught in school or even elsewhere that estar is used for temporary things and ser is used for more permanent things. And that is just the distinction between these two verbs. Yeah, it's worth mentioning that to some extent, I definitely agree with that. Of course, there's some logic behind that. Otherwise, people would not, people would not learn it that way. But that can be slightly misleading. It's certainly not true to say that estar is always used for everything that is temporary, whereas ser is used for everything that is permanent, because there are exceptions to that, as we will see. So that rule, even though that is the way that most students would learn this, GCSE, iGCSE level, or general Spanish learners, even though that's the way most people would learn it, it's not necessarily the best way to do so. So now let's look at the verb estar. So estar is used to indicate geographical or physical location. So if you want to say where you are, where your house is, where your friend or somebody else is, you'd use the verb estar and not the verb ser. For example, mi casa está en Londres. My house is in London. You'd use the verb estar. There you would not say mi casa es en Londres. That definitely does sound wrong. So for geographical or physical locations, you'd use the verb estar, and that is a very common usage of estar. There is one important exception, though, which is for events. So if you're talking about where an event is going to be held or was held or it is currently being held, you'd use the verb ser instead of estar. So that is an unusual and pretty tricky exception. For example, you would say, el concierto es en Madrid instead of el concierto está en Madrid. El concierto es en Madrid translates as the concert is in Madrid, of course. So in that particular example, because a concert is a kind of event, you'd use the verb ser instead of estar. And that is quite tricky. It can be very easy to forget that as well, because this is a very specific exception. Only for events, you would use the verb ser instead of estar for geographical or physical locations. For everything else, you would use estar to express geographical or physical location of someone or something. The good thing is, though, that exception is very rare, and you're quite unlikely to come across it in a GCSE or iGCSE paper because it is just so specific, but worth remembering or bearing in mind if possible. The next use of the verb estar is for emotions or feelings, or temporary states more generally. So if you're expressing an emotion or a feeling, you would certainly use the verb estar instead of ser. For example, you would say, estoy triste porque mi equipo perdió. I am sad because my team lost. You'd say estoy triste and not soy triste from the verb ser, because feeling sad, that is an emotion, and therefore you'd use estar. Emotions and feelings do tend to be more temporary. They're more subject to change. Physical locations can potentially change as well. So that is another way potentially of thinking through it if it's easier for you as well. Likewise, if you were to express, say, feeling tired, which is a physical sensation or feeling, you'd use estar rather than ser. Estoy cansado o estoy cansada. I am tired. So likewise, estar will be used to indicate conditions. So this is similar to when you say that you're tired, for example. You would say estoy enfermo o enferma for a girl después de haber salido ayer, meaning I'm ill after I went out yesterday or after going out yesterday. So you'd say estoy enfermo o enferma to say I'm ill, rather than soy enfermo. Again, conditions are very much temporary. They can fluctuate a lot. You would use estar when expressing them in Spanish. Estar also has a special usage, a very particular usage, which is that of ongoing actions. So this is basically referred to as continuous or progressive tenses in terms of grammar. And grammatically, estar is used to form them. So you would create these continuous or progressive tenses using the verb estar conjugated in a particular tense, whether it's the present tense, future tense, imperfect tense, and so on. And then you would follow that up with the gerund form, the gerund or the present participle in Spanish, which have the same form, which ends in ndo in Spanish. If you're not familiar with the gerund or the present participle, it's worth looking over that and how to form it. They are pretty simple to form in Spanish. They will always end in ndo. Every verb will have the corresponding gerund and present participle. For AR verbs, it would simply end in ando. So hablar becomes hablando in the gerund or present participle. And for ER and IR verbs, it would become yendo instead. So comer would become comiendo, vivir would become viviendo. But worth revising that a bit if it's less familiar. So to give you an example of estar being used for a continuous or progressive tense, you could say, estamos hablando español porque no tenemos ningún otro idioma en común, which means we are speaking Spanish because we do not have any other language in common. So here, estamos hablando is the present progressive or present continuous tense, formed of estar in the present tense, in the we form here, nosotros form, followed by the gerund, hablando. So estamos hablando translates more as we are speaking in English. Hablamos is more like we speak, so used more to indicate regular actions or generalities rather than something that's ongoing or happening at this particular moment. So that is a very specific use of the verb estar. Okay, now moving on to the verb ser. As mentioned, I would still simply remember these uses of the verb ser by thinking of them as the ones that estar is not used for, essentially. So I would simply ask myself, has any of the criteria for using the verb estar been met? If not, then I'm going to use ser instead. And it does work very well for me now, but that is with practice as well. It's likely to take some practice of getting used to how Spanish speakers use ser and estar. So ser is certainly used to indicate origin, the origin of someone or something. For example, you'd say soy de España to mean I am from Spain instead of estoy de España. If a person themselves is coming from Spain, if they are originally from a particular country or area or city, you'd use the verb ser instead of estar. If you're talking about professions, you would use ser as well. So you could say, for instance, soy profesor en una escuela de Barcelona, meaning I am a teacher in a school in Barcelona. You definitely wouldn't say estoy profesor. That definitely seems wrong. You would use the verb ser when talking about professions. This is also one of the reasons why I say that it can be misleading or perhaps tricky to simply memorize that estar is used for temporary things and ser is used for permanent things, because professions certainly can and often do change over time. They're not permanent. Nevertheless, you would use the verb ser when expressing or talking about professions in Spanish. Professions and jobs, same thing. Okay, likewise, if you're discussing or talking about the time and date, you use ser in Spanish. So you say son las 3 de la tarde, meaning it is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You wouldn't say están las 3 de la tarde. That definitely doesn't exist, doesn't work. Ser is used for the time and date. And if expressing general characteristics as well, you'd use the verb ser rather than estar. Ella es muy alta, for example. She is very tall. And again, that's another reason why it can be misleading to think of ser as the verb used for only permanent things, because somebody's height, even somebody's physical appearance, can change over time, whether they're thin or fat, for instance. But you would still use the verb ser when expressing or talking about those general characteristics. And if you're talking about material, what something is made of, this is quite a niche or precise usage of ser, less common for sure, but you would use the verb ser in this instance as well. For instance, la mesa es de madera, the table is made of wood, rather than la mesa está de madera. Um, yeah, so you'd use es from the verb ser instead of está from the verb estar. And likewise with possession, this is somewhat more common. If you're saying who or what something belongs to, you'd use the verb ser instead of estar. So you'd say este es mi libro, for example, this is my book, and not este está mi libro, which certainly sounds wrong. Yeah, so for possession, use the verb ser as well. Okay, those are all of the uses of each of those two verbs. Two key verbs in the Spanish language, and two verbs that you would need to know well for GCSE and iGCSE, regardless of your target grade. And now I'm going to test you on using each of these with a series of quick questions from English to Spanish. So, how do you say in Spanish? This is question one. They are doctors and they are short. So, slightly funny sentence, but the first thing I would think through is which verb you should use for both of those they are's. Would you use ser or would you use estar? And then think through, then put the verb into the correct form once you've decided which verbs to use, and then conjugate the verbs and then translate the rest of the sentence too. Okay, I'll give you some more seconds to think through this. Okay, let me show the answer then. So basically, you do ser for both of these verbs. So you'd say son médicos y son bajos. They are doctors and they are short. The reason why you use ser in both of these instances and not estar is because you're talking about jobs. For the first one, they are doctors. That's a job or a profession. So you'd use the verb ser, not estar. And for the second one, they are short. That is a characteristic of somebody, a general characteristic. And so you'd use ser as well. So let's go on to the second one. Second question, they are very angry because I woke up late. So we have one instance of they are in this particular sentence. So try and think through whether you should use the verb ser or estar there. Think back to the categories we looked over, and then conjugate that verb in the correct form, and then translate the rest of the sentence. Makes it sound a bit easier than it is. I'll give you a bit of time to do this one as well. A little bit more time. Okay, and now I'm going to show the answer. So for this second one, you do use estar rather than ser for this first verb, they are, because feeling angry, that's a feeling. So you'd use estar for that reason instead of ser. And there's only one instance of the verb to be here. So they are very angry because I woke up late. In Spanish would be, they were very angry because I woke up late. That's what's been translated actually below. So they were very angry because I woke up late. In Spanish would be estaban muy enfadados porque me desperté tarde. To wake up, that is a reflexive verb despertarse. So that should go in the preterite tense here. And you need to remember the reflexive pronoun coming just in front of the verb to. Enfadado, is one of the words for angry in Spanish. And estaban is actually in the imperfect tense. So the imperfect tense of the verb estar. So it should be the translation of they were very angry. Okay, and the last one then. We are from England, but we are in Valencia now. I'll give you a bit of time to think through this. Again, we've got two verbs to be. We are from England, and then we are in Valencia now. So think through each of those. Would you use ser or estar for each? Then conjugate the verb appropriately, and then the rest of the sentence too. Okay, a little bit more time for this. Okay, and I'm going to reveal the answer. Somos de Inglaterra, pero ahora estamos en Valencia. So the first verb we are from England. That is ser. You would use the verb ser. So that becomes somos, the we form of the present tense. Somos de Inglaterra, because you're talking about origin, where somebody is from. The second time we are in Valencia now. Then you would use estar, because we're talking about a location of someone. Yeah, so that becomes estamos, the nosotros, the we form of the present tense. Okay, so hopefully those were not too challenging. And now we're going to go on to a very quick quiz just to test your understanding of these two crucial Spanish verbs, ser and estar. Okay, number one. What is the exception to the rule that estar is used to express physical or geographical location in Spanish? A bit of a tricky one to start, but try and think back, see if you can remember it. Okay, and I will show the answer now. So this is events. Events are the exception. So when you're giving the location of an event, you'd actually use the verb ser and not estar. That is very much an exception. For any other locations, you'd use the verb estar. Okay, number two is true or false. Estar is used to express time and date in Spanish. Which verb should you use to express the time and date in Spanish? Try and think back. Okay, now I'm going to show you the answer for this. So this is false. Ser is the verb used when expressing the time and the date instead. Yeah, whenever you express time and date, you would inevitably use the verb ser in Spanish. Number three, true or false. Estar is used to express feelings and emotions in Spanish. Which verb do you use for feelings and emotions? A little bit more time to think over this. Okay, and I'm going to show you the answer now. So this one is true this time. So estar instead of ser is used to express feelings or emotions in Spanish. And question number four, why could it be misleading to simply learn that the verb ser is used for more permanent things, whereas the verb estar is used for more temporary things? Because this is the way that many students, arguably most students, will revise and memorize the verbs estar and ser. Okay, give you a few more seconds to think through this. Okay, now I'll show you the answer. So, yeah, this does not always hold true, and that's the reason why this could potentially be misleading. For example, ser is used when talking about somebody's job and someone's height, someone's weight, and more, and all of that can change over time. Yeah, there are a few other examples too, but that is the reason why thinking of ser as the more permanent one and estar as the temporary one could be misleading. But of course, use whichever method works best for you to remember these. And if you have questions at all about any of this or for information about more personalized help, which I do provide as well, you can get in touch by email, through Facebook, or through Instagram. And I do post on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as well, every day, sharing my love of languages with people, hopefully encouraging more and more of them to learn languages and giving them the tools to enable them to do so while having a lot of fun at the same time. I do post on Spanish GCSE and iGCSE, as well as other GCSE and iGCSE language exams as well, giving advice on how to maximize your grade, how to get to your goal, how to go into the exams feeling confident and relaxed, and more. So do follow me on each of those platforms. I do have many resources, including free ones available too, for GCSE and iGCSE languages, which includes Spanish, GCSE and iGCSE. And I do one-to-one classes, group sessions, courses, and a lot more. So don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to know more of any of that.